Pediatrics Journal says to stop calling breastfeeding natural. And when you read the article and see why, it's getting pretty scary. This is from March 23rd, 2016. Now, why on earth would you call breastfeeding? Would you be against calling breastfeeding natural? Obviously, studies show that babies that breastfeed longer rather than drinking milk, all different kinds of milk, cow's milk, soy milk, whatever it is, it's natural to drink your mother's milk. And so obviously, the studies show that their immune systems improve, their general health improve, the rates of things that are very common like ear infections for babies and toddlers and stuff, it dramatically goes down based on if they drink their healthy mother's breast milk. But when you read the article, this is just fascism. This is insanity. A new article in the Journal of Pediatrics is calling on health professionals to stop saying that breastfeeding is natural, arguing that doing so gives the impression that natural parenting practices are healthier. The authors have started a public campaign to end the positive use of the word natural next to breastfeeding, claiming that it is associated with such, quote, problematic practices as home birth, homeschooling, and the rejection of GMO foods, and that natural parenting movements are interfering with vaccination efforts. Now, I don't think that the powers that be are only opposed to these problematic practices, as they call it, just because they're not making money on vaccinations. It's a big part of it. Vaccinations are the largest growing division of the pharmaceutical industry, the fastest growing. And so they're really pushing out vaccines for everything. They're finding more things to get more vaccines for. And kids are being recommended to be given 30 times more vaccines than, a generation or two ago. Just look it up. I'm throwing a roundabout number there, but it's in that range, okay, of 30 times as many vaccines. The last time I checked and estimated, it's in that range. It's nuts. So yeah, they're making a lot of money on vaccines, but they don't want people to homeschool. They don't want people to teach creationism and that God created humans and that we live on a flat, motionless earth plane. They want people to believe in this atheistic globe earth traveling around the sun, tilted at 66.6 degrees axis. Oh, wait a minute, 23.4 is what they say, right? Just going a quick diversion here. Earth's axis tilt, they tell you that it is 23.4 degrees. When you count from the other direction on a 90-degree angle, what's 90 minus 23.4? 66.6. So they want us to believe that the Earth that there's this planet, globe Earth, and for those of you that are paying attention, there's a whole flat Earth movement all over Google and all over YouTube that's taken up steam over the past 18 months. It's really exponentially grown. And, they don't want people to teach the reality of the world that we live in. They don't want people to teach creationism. They don't want people to teach that God created humans and that he put them here on an earth. They want us to all believe that we're here by an accident and the Big Bang happened and we evolved from monkeys, which evolved from insects, which evolved from bacteria in a pond that got struck by lightning billions and billions of years ago, and eventually we evolved into what we are right now. So that's part of the atheistic global agenda. And I would encourage you that are new to this to look up Eric Dubé, Flat Earth. He has a lot of information, 200 proofs the Earth is not a spinning ball. And people are coming back to their belief in God and creationism by looking and examining the science behind the lack of curvature of the Earth and the other information in there. This is not a video on flat Earth, but just want to let you know it's a growing niche segment in the truth movement that is really picking up, and it's something to look into. If you've never looked into it, go on YouTube, type in Eric Dubé Flat Earth, and look at all the suggested videos and spend a lot of time learning what's going on. But what they want is for the government to school people and teach people you know, they teach people that this is the Earth, okay? You know, I believe that the reason that we went to the moon, quote unquote, the reason why they faked the moon landings and made people believe that they went to the moon is really just to get people to really believe that the Earth is a planet and a spinning globe and all this nonsense. And so this is the real heart of the whole agenda. Now people say, oh, you went around, you know, we went around the globe. We went around the globe this way. We've never went around the globe north and south, okay? And so what I believe is that the people that went, there is a magnetic north, okay? And it's very easy to have gone around the flat Earth in a circle around magnetic north, and for the world that we live on to still be a flat plane. Everyone knows if you walk in a desert in a straight line because one foot is a little bit longer than the other foot, you will actually wind up walking around in a big circle. Okay? So just because we went around the magnetic north like this in a big circle, okay, doesn't mean that the Earth is a globe. You can make a big circle on a big flat plane, but no one has ever went around the Earth north and south, and no one's ever crossed the south part of Antarctica. In the flat Earth map, in the flat Earth model, the Antarctica is surrounding the oceans and holding the oceans in that are surrounding all the continents. So, of course, they don't want people homeschooling and teaching creationism and teaching God. They want people to learn this atheistic solar system. I remember when I was in school, I wanted to do a science project on creating a solar system model. Yeah, solar system model for kids, solar system project. I mean, this is what the whole point of school really is. I used to think that school is really just public government-run school. They call it public school system. Public school system. It's really government school system. And they took it to another level with Common Core. The only, ones that are criticizing Common Core is Trump and a few other Republicans that are saying we want local education. We want to give options for teachers in local communities and people to have flexibility as to how and what they teach the kids. And, when it comes from Washington, D.C., and the Department of Education and the Obama administration or the, whether it was the Bush administration, doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat, but the goal is for the Illuminati, New World Order agenda to not just I used to think that they were brainwashing people just about history and making, the USA government look great throughout history and covering up its atrocities and its assassinations and the JFK conspiracy and, of course, the 9/11 cover-up. Of course, they're going to cover that and not teach our next generation of people as our kids grow up into educated adults. Of course, they're going to be lied to and not told about the real parts of history that mean anything. But in addition to lying about history, they're lying about science as well. And this takes another leap into the conspiracy rabbit hole. But all these images of the solar system and of the Earth, it's just computer generated horseshit. It's really just computer generated. If you type in pictures of the globe, of Earth, pictures of Earth, they all look different. I mean, you can tell that they're computer generated. And NASA, which is an arm of the Department of Defense, which is directly run by the President, Obama, or whoever, Bush, whatever, they admit that these pictures are all computer generated and that there's really only a couple of real, quote unquote, pictures. So again, how do we know any of this is real? Okay, and this is the reason why the moon landings were faked, right? To get a alleged picture of the Earth from space to, quote, prove to people. And obviously, you got pictures of Mars and pictures of Jupiter. I mean, these are not, real pictures. This is all nonsense. And I think that this alleged pyramid on Mars is really just a scam, distraction. I don't really believe that we've ever landed on Mars. I think that this is all nonsense. But, the controlling agenda, again, these are all computer-generated pictures. This is just an artist drawing stuff. And a lot of what we are taught about space and space exploration is all a scam. And how do you know that? Why should you be open to that? Because just look at the moon landings. Moon landings faked, moon landings hoax. Go on YouTube, type the stuff in. I mean, how do you have a flag waving in space? It's a bunch of nonsense. And if you've never looked into it, look into it. So back to this article. There's a bigger agenda here than just vaccine companies making money. They want to prevent people from learning the truth about the world we live in. Okay, in my opinion, it's a flat, motionless plane and not a spinning, globular ball. And you can look into that, and I would invite you to look into that if you've never looked into that. There's actually it sounds crazy for the first time, but there's a lot of truthers out there that are jumping on board with that. Once you go flat, you never go back. Okay, once you really research the science, you learn that we're being lied to, and our kids are being lied to about science. So, yes, there are people that are going to be anti-vaccine to promote the health of their kids, and they're going to be pro-home birth, and they're going to, hopefully, many of them will be anti-birth certificate, and they will just record the birth of the baby in the family Bible and have an affidavit and have a picture and maybe a blood sample and a hair sample to just prove the identity in case the kid is ever kidnapped and claimed to be someone else's property. So you can prove that it's your son or your daughter. And, this whole circumcision thing is ridiculous. Circumcision is I'm going to do a whole nother video on where circumcision is horrific. But, I mean, we live in such a crazy world where you're born in a hospital, you're circumcised and having your most sensitive region of your manhood, of your male genitalia, that cut. Incredible pain. I mean, just go on YouTube and type in live circumcision video, and there's a video of rabbis doing the circumcision. You see that baby screaming and crying. I mean, it's horrific to sit through. How can we, in a quote civilized world, allow this to happen? And then they put your footprint, and then they claim their property, and they register it with the U.S. government. And so now the U.S. government makes millions of dollars off of your trading your birth certificate on the stock market, and they own you, can imprison you, tax you, fine you. They can repossess their property, like repossessing a car, whenever they want to, because they have a lien on it. So, some people say, oh, well, this is kidnapping. It is, but in the commercial world, the Babylonian commercial world that they put people through, there's a legal reason why the government can come and take your kids from you, force chemotherapy, force vaccine, or just take them away because they feel like you've been a bad parent. So what they're saying is that there's this growing movement of problematic practices such as home birth. Now they don't put in here not filing birth certificates, but they will maybe in 5 or 10 or 15 years if more people stop doing that, or they may just try to be preventing other people, because this is from the examiner.com. They may be trying to prevent other people from doing that, but that's really how you prevent them from forcing you what to do in the first place, is just don't file a birth certificate. Then they don't own your kid, and then they can't do anything. But they're going to try to ban homeschooling. They're, rejection of GMO foods, that's pretty much here to stay, and public opinion is basically on our side with that one. Let's see what they say. They say problematic practices such as home birth, homeschooling, and rejection of GMO foods. Now, the other thing is just they want to dumb down the kids. I think Trump has said this statistic over and over and over, and whether you like Trump or not, I haven't heard anyone that keeps repeating this, but the U.S. is the number one in education. I mean, we spend the most amount of money in education. Second place is not even close, but we're 30th from all the countries in the world in how well we do in education, how smart our kids are graduating from school. So how can we be number one and number two is not even close on the map of how much money we spend on education? It's because of government-run education. So they're trying to dumb down America, okay, and destroy the economy of America by making there be, no educated, no skilled kids coming out of high school, coming out of college, and also making them go to college, having them be undertrained, undereducated, underqualified, so that people go to college, take out these huge student loan debts, and then be owned and controlled by the government. They're going to start, as you see, they're starting to arrest people for not paying student loans. They're going to be starting to take away people's passports if you default on your student loan, and you won't be able to leave the country even on vacation. So this is where I see all this going. I don't have the time to pull up all the other cross-referencing articles to kind of show you all that, but hopefully you've been paying attention and reading these articles. But they're saying that these are a list of problematic practices: home birth, homeschooling, rejection of GMO foods, and the natural parenting movements, which are interfering with vaccine efforts. They're also interfering with the government's ability to teach people in this atheistic worldview of a scientific abomination of the globe Earth, as well as just dumbing down people, and they just want to have control over the curriculum and what people do. And, this was the whole point of the feminist movement. This is why the Rockefellers funded the feminist movement. We're all for equality and equal rights between all human beings, but the Rockefellers and the other Illuminati interests funded the feminist movement because they wanted to get women into the workforce, to tax twice as much of the population, but also, more importantly, to indoctrinate their children into the public government-run school system. The first public schools, the first mandatory public schools, were the children were actually escorted against their parents' wishes by the military. And first one who told me that was Billy Thornton, who's a law. You can find his stuff on YouTube. I really respect a lot of the stuff that he puts out, but he was the first one that. And I looked into it and found out that it's true. So, if you want to gain your sovereignty back, it starts with the next generation. A lot of us are so far into these contracts with the corporation and we're trying to get out of them, and they may be changing the rules and the capacity. It may be harder and harder and harder. Once you have a birth certificate, once you have a social security card, once you have a driver's license, it may become harder and harder and harder and harder as the years go on to reverse and rescind those contracts and get out of that. I'm warning you guys now. Where we need to put our focus is the next generation and educating parents to make sure that their kids that they bring into this world are not sold off as property of the U.S. corporation or the Canadian corporation or the British UK corporation or the Australian corporation or any of these corporate governments, de facto corporations. Okay? And so, yeah, I am not ashamed to admit that I am a huge advocate and will be continuing to do work towards the acceleration of the exponential enlightenment of people towards these, quote, problematic practices such as home birth and homeschooling, rejection of GMO foods, and natural parenting movements, and anti-vaccine efforts. Let's go on. In the article, The Unintended Consequences of Invoking the Natural in Breastfeeding Promotion, Jessica so-and-so and Ann so-and-so, Medical Ethics and Health Policy Research at Penn Medicine, wrote, building on this critical work, we are concerned about breastfeeding promotion that praises breastfeeding as the natural way to feed infants. This messaging plays into a powerful perspective that, quote, natural approaches to health are better. Promoting breastfeeding as natural may be ethically problematic, and even more troublingly, it may bolster this belief that natural approaches are presumptively healthier. The authors are especially concerned that promoting natural practices such as breastfeeding will harm vaccination rates. Since many parents who follow natural parenting practices also delay or decline vaccines for their children. They also cite other examples of the fallacy that natural choices are intrinsically better, including the rejection of GMO foods, the preference for organic over conventional grown foods. You know, you ever seen that picture? It used to just be called food. You know what I'm talking about? We didn't have to put the word organic on it. 50 years ago, it just used to be called food. It used to be what everybody ate before they started spraying chemicals on it after World War II, and pesticides on it, which didn't exist forever. So the preference for organic over conventional grown foods and concerns over water fluoridation. I'm not even going to dive into water fluoridation. If you think that the science isn't settled on water fluoridation being harmful to you, I mean, you're an idiot. I mean, just do your research. I mean, you're just not paying attention. I don't know why Barack Obama and all these people go on TV and say the science is settled over climate change. Why don't they say the science is settled over water fluoridation? Because it basically is. Again, I can go off and do another 90-minute video just on that. I'm not going to go off on that in this video. Apparently, the risk of giving the impression that natural choices can ever be positive choices is so great that the authors conclude that the word natural should not be used in a positive context, even if it means undermining breastfeeding. They wrote, we should think twice before referencing the word natural in breastfeeding promotion, even if it motivates women to breastfeed. Am I even going to read the rest of this? Basically, the powers that be are concerned. They've got the vaccine companies in their pockets, but behind that, the powers that be are very concerned about a movement of people giving the middle finger to the public school system, the government school system, and educating their kids locally in homeschooling communities, and it's totally practical. Not everyone needs to learn a whole curriculum and educate their own kids. You can find other homeschooling moms and dads in your local town, and if they're the same age, you can have 3 to 12 kids around the same age be taught in a neighbor's school. I mean, when I was a kid, we did that with religion class. When I went to religion class every week, the other kids my age, in whatever grade it was, I started doing that. I just got dropped off a mile from my house, and one of the local moms at the local church there volunteered to educate all the kids because it was the right thing to do. So, I know with the economy and everybody working jobs and things like that and trying to make money or whatever, I know it's hard for everybody to educate their own kids, but that's not the only option. We should be building homeschooling communities and figuring out what we need to be figuring out what the truth is for ourselves so that we don't regurgitate lies to our kids, right? And I'm sure a lot of you that are watching this are probably on the bad wagon with knowing that GMO foods, water fluoridation, and things like that are bad. But I'm telling you, there's a lot in history, and there's a lot in science, and there's a lot in anthropology. There's a lot that is a lie. Pretty much health class. Putting your kids in public school, the only thing that they really teach you in health class, if I remember, when I went to health class, they don't really teach you about health. They really just teach you about drugs and alcohol and safe sex, right? The three things that I ever retained from health class in the public school system was what is the definition of alcoholism, and don't drink and drive especially. Drugs and smoking are bad. This is what your lungs look like if you smoke. This is someone's healthy lungs. They obviously are different colors, so you can remember that. You have that image in your head, and you're taught not to smoke. I remember they had police officers come in and teach us DARE, D-A-R-E. I forgot what it stands for. D-A-R-E. Y'all remember this? Resist drugs and violence. What the hell did this even stand for? I forgot. And basically wear condoms. I think they might have taught us how to not get pregnant, and a little bit about STIs. They called it STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, but they actually are STIs. It's a sexually transmitted infection. Syphilis, gonorrhea, all these different things that they use to scare us. And basically, they're just sexually transmitted infections. If you want to look up the definition, sexually transmitted infections. It's only a disease when your body goes into dis-ease and you actually have a disease. Okay? You can have a infection. You can have a outbreak. You can catch a bacteria that is killed. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, all these things are bacteria, and they can be killed with an antibiotic, or it could be a medical antibiotic, or it can be a natural antibiotic. Here you go. Here's a whole bunch of them. Hepatitis, all these different things. Crabs, HIV, AIDS, okay? Which, by the way, HIV, AIDS is another big scam. If you type in HIV, AIDS doesn't exist, or what is it? What are some of the things there? Oh, look, there's a whole Wikipedia on HIV/AIDS denialism. That's how popular it is. Obviously trying to debunk it if they're going to call it denialism, but there's a lot of Nobel Prize winners, right? I think, what's the website? Rethink AIDS. Okay, and you got a list on here, thousands of scientists. Okay, this is denying AIDS. Virusmyth.com. There is a HIV skeptic. In other countries of the world, this is openly accepted and openly talked about, but in the U.S. and the U.S. media and many other countries, you can't talk about this. Everyone assumes that AIDS is this deadly, sexually transmitted thing, and blah, 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 blah. And again, that's, in my opinion, that's just a whole lie. If you look up Dr. Peter Duesberg, okay, Duesberg.org, check his site out. The guy who invented the polymerase chain reaction, Nobel Prize for Chemistry, 1993. What the hell is his name? Kary Mullis. Nobel Prize winning American biochemist. Shared the Nobel Prize in 1983. If you remember chemistry class, he discovered the polymerase chain reaction technique. And he does not believe that HIV causes AIDS. NobelPrize.org. There you go. He's featured right on there. Okay? So look into some of these things. The things that we're taught in school, bottom line, is that a lot of them, I think like 80% of them, are lies. So we need to develop our own homeschooling system and take our kids out of the government-run school systems, in my opinion, and teach them the truth about the world. Before NASA really went off to the moon and all that stuff, no one really, talked about it. No one really had a picture of the Earth from space. Everything was a computer-generated composite. There's a video on YouTube where NASA admits that a NASA employee admits that they're just composite images that they take, and just artists just create composite images. Okay, it's not a real picture. So there's a lot of maps here. If you look at this, this is someone pulled this from the Boston Public Library, published by the Buffalo Electrotype and Engraving Co., Buffalo, New York. And this is a map of the world, Gleason's map of the world. There's a lot of other maps and explorers that have mapped out the world, that have went around the whole coast of Antarctica. One of the explorers had documented in their diaries that it took 3.5 years to travel around the entire coast of Antarctica. If Antarctica was really at the South Pole and this small little continent at the bottom of the South Pole, it wouldn't have took that long. But they sailed on boats for 3.5 years and went all the way around until they got to the same place again. And it took 3.5 years. And if you look into this, you will see that they flight paths totally, let's see, flight paths, flat Earth. Okay, there's no flights that go from one area of the southern hemisphere, direct non-stop flight, to another area of the southern hemisphere, because there's not enough jet fuel to get there. And what they have to do, right, if they're going to go from here to here, they're going to be crossing the other continent of the continental United States and Mexico anyway, so they might as well just stop there anyway on the way to New Zealand, Australia, whatever. So if you look, all the flights actually go up through Mexico and the United States and Canada before they continue going to Australia. Okay, and all the flights, it's the same thing. Okay, there was a flight recently that went from over here. Actually, let me pull up. I love it when I go like this. I use my little paint thing. All right. If you look in the news, there was a flight that went from let's see, gives birth on plane, lands in Alaska. Mom gives birth prematurely during 19-hour flight. So this article, Huffington Post, dailymail.co.uk, it's NY Daily News, it's not a conspiracy website, telegraph.co.uk, just mainstream news. A woman gave birth in the air, and the pilot decided to make an emergency landing in Alaska. But guess what? They were going from map of globe. They were going from, I guess we'll use this map, Bali to Los Angeles. Okay, so they were going from in here over the Pacific Ocean like this, right? Basically crossing like Hawaii right there, and they're headed towards Los Angeles. But they made an emergency landing in Alaska because a woman, gave birth in the air. And why would they go from here, like this. It doesn't make any sense. Let me show you what I'm talking about with this. Okay, so they went like this. Okay, and that if they had to make an emergency landing, they would have landed in Hawaii or kept going to go to Los Angeles. You don't make an emergency landing and decide to go all the way up here to Alaska. Why wouldn't you just go to Hawaii, or in about the same distance, you can just go straight to your final destination instead of go all out of your way. But if you look at the flat Earth map, I'm just going to estimate. If you look at the flat Earth map, whoops. Let's get this here, right? There you go. If you look at the flat Earth map, from the one destination to the other, Alaska is basically right on the way. Emergency landing in Alaska. Emergency landing in Hawaii doesn't make any sense. Hawaii is where? Like down here? Or over here? Whichever, wherever it is. I think it's over here, actually. So, on the map that they indoctrinated us to believe from the public school systems, they would be going way out of their way. They just, if they're going to make an emergency landing, the pilots are all in on this, and they obviously landed in Alaska, and nobody on the plane thinks, nobody questions the globe. There's a globe in every classroom, every day, from preschool and kindergarten to wherever. And in all the corporate logos, and on TV, and on magazines, every single day, we never question this big, monumental, freaking lie. So we need to take our kids out of the public school system and homeschool them, and not vaccinate them, and not give them GMOs, and not give them fluoride, and not teach them to be obedient to authority, and all these things. To just be mindless slaves, and to be dumbed down, and to not be having any skills in the real world, so that when they graduate they can't even get jobs. Alright, so, you know, look into these things. I know it sounds a little crazy, the globe thing, but there's so many people. It's exponentially growing. If you look at there's millions and millions of people catching on to this in the truther community and elsewhere. And you can do scientific experiments to try to prove this or to try to debunk this. And you know what? Majority of the flat Earth believers today are people that tried to debunk the flat Earth theory and did scientific experiments and testing the curvature of the Earth and testing, you know, taking telescopes and zooming them in on boats going off the shore to see if they go over the horizon, and different things like that. Like you can look at Chicago skyline. Yeah, it was on the news. Somebody from 60 miles away from the Chicago skyline took photos showing the Chicago city skyline, which should have been below the horizon because of the curvature of the Earth. And this weatherman said, oh, well, that's just a mirage. And it's, you can look into what a mirage is and see that it's not a mirage and what a mirage really is, but, you know, Okay, they're going to lie to people on TV as well. We need to stop watching television. We need to stop watching the mainstream media. But you can find this whole video on YouTube if you type in Chicago skyline flat Earth. Look at the flight path. Look at all these things. There's all sorts of information, but this is directly from the Bible, that they don't want people to learn, that they're taking people, every generation, people are removed more and more and more from God, and every generation of our youth that grow up are more and more atheists, and they do not believe in God anymore. And that's why we need to educate people at home and develop real skills and real health habits, not just like, oh, don't do drugs, oh, don't do alcohol, oh, practice safe sex, wear a condom. Like, some of that stuff has merit, but they're not teaching people real health. They're not teaching people about GMOs in health class. They're not teaching people about fluoride. They're not teaching people about air filters, water filters, rebounders and saunas and exercise routines, and making and eating raw foods. They're not teaching people about avoiding pesticides and how they can affect you when you eat food additives and things like this. The government school system doesn't want to help you. They want you to be sick, and they want you to be customers, and they want you to be dead before you wake up and figure out what's really going on, so that your soul will, before you die, if you don't wake up and realize that we were created and put here by God, your soul will go to Satan. So that's the idea. It's soul sucking. That's the real agenda. And unless you wake up and realize what's really going on, you will not be saved. And that's just on you. That's just happened to be my own little personal theory, my own personal take on it. But there's a lot of things that that we need to research and learn ourselves before we even have kids, in my opinion, so that you don't have your kids and then brainwash them and indoctrinate them into the wrong information. If you're not even sure what's going on in the world, how are you going to put a curriculum together to teach your kids? Now, check this out. This is a map of the flat Earth behind the desk of the White House. A special control emergency war missile room. I think somebody else posted this and said this was behind JFK's desk. When they were interballistic continental missiles with the USSR, and they were concerned about Cuba missile crisis and all these things. This were the actual dimensions on the map on the wall. Because when you're shooting missiles, the missiles are not going to go according to the fake belief of what the Earth is. They're going to go based on reality. If you shoot a missile from one place to another, it's going to go from one place to another. Okay? Now, the other thing is, of course, they're going to lie to people. They could lie to people about the Earth. People that have no control over stopping missiles coming to the U.S., regular civilians, it don't matter if we know about the real Earth, right? It don't matter. But they need the people at the high level in the military to know. They need the people that run the world, obviously, at a certain level, need to know that the Earth is flat, or whatever it is, right? And don't you think that the pilots, the people that sail the oceans, maybe the people that do the weather and the climate kind of, need to be in on it as well? Well, look at this. They're actually throwing it right in our face. United Nations logo. It's the Flat Earth logo. It's the same dimensions as the Flat Earth logo. This wreath, I guess they're trying to say that's their symbol for Antarctica. Because there's no Antarctica on the map. There's no South Pole continent. All right. So you got the United Nations logo. They're throwing it in your face and showing you, and in an encoded way, the people at the top are actually going by this map. Now, but not only that, you've got the International Civil Aviation Organization. Aviation is flying, piloting, flying in the air. And look at this, the International Civil Aviation Organization also has a flat Earth map. If you're going to fly a plane, don't you have to adjust for the curvature of the Earth if you're going to get from one place to another? If it exists, right? Don't you have to follow the real map and make an emergency landing wherever the nearest land is, rather than, the civilians on the flight? The civilians on the flight don't need to know, where they're flying over. They just need to know where they're leaving and where they're going to. But the pilots absolutely need to know where they're going. When they're flying and navigating the real map, they need to know where to go in order to get there and where to make an emergency landing. So, of course, their map is going to be different than the map that your kids are brainwashed in the public school system. Not only that, but the people who sail the oceans, the maritime organization, the International Maritime Organization, they have the flat Earth map as well. Because if you're a sailor, you kind of have to know the real dimensions. And the people that run and test and observe the climate and the weather also have the flat Earth logo and the flat Earth dimensions and their logo, International Meteorological Association. So, I don't know, folks. I don't know how we didn't figure this out much sooner. Climate change, global warming is a bunch of baloney because there really isn't even a globe. You don't even have to debate with people anymore that the globe isn't warming, which is true. It's actually cooling, but it's not even a globe. They don't even have that part correct. So look into some of these things, educate yourself. When you become educated enough and you're confident enough that you really know what's going on, now you can be responsible enough to have kids of your own. As long as you set aside some money and are financially responsible enough to raise them and have the funds to educate them and feed them and give them clean food and clean water properly and things like that. But when you do, hopefully you can get with some sort of a homeschooling system. Hopefully you'll take our status correction courses and learn how to avoid contracting and giving away your son or daughter's rights by issuing birth certificates and Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare and Obamacare and all these, every care. When the government takes care of you, they take away your rights. That's why they're pushing all these things, and that's the whole Bernie Sanders basically wants everybody to be taken care of by the government, so that the government can have complete, absolute control over everybody, and it'll be virtually impossible for people to be sovereign, because people will stop getting used to working hard and paying for their own stuff. If you want to be sovereign, you have to pay your own way. You can't take a handout. You can't take a benefit. Accepting of a benefit comes with corresponding duties and obligations. If you're going to be a citizen and you're going to apply for the right to vote, which is only for U.S. citizens, a driver's license, which is only for U.S. citizens, just read the applications. I go over them and examine them and read them with you in the status correction course. All these things, unemployment, food stamps, public assistance housing, they're all only for U.S. citizens, which is a property, slave, collateral surety for the national debt of the U.S. private corporation. So, if you want to be free, you have to learn how to make your own money, do your own private businesses, or your own private markets, and have private exchange of goods and services with other individuals in your community or the world. Today we have the internet. You can do exchanges of people with people from 7 billion people on every single continent on the flat earth. Can be your customer. with a website and a PayPal account. But learn how to be independent and make your own money so that you don't need to take any bailouts or handouts or benefits from the government, and you can be sovereign and start raising your kids in the next generation that way, so that the government can't force vaccinate them, force chemotherapy them, take them away from you, or draft them off to a war. Maybe if we bring back, some politicians want to bring back the draft. And the way to be an exception to all that nonsense and all the force this, force that's coming down the line is to be sovereign. So if you're not, you can change your status. You can become a private citizen. You can become an American national. You can become a secured party creditor. Those are pretty much all synonymous terms. So check out our website to find out more about that. But really, I see a point where in the future they're going to make it very, very, very difficult and hard. It already is very difficult and hard to figure out how to become free once again. But the bottom line is, don't throw your offspring into becoming slaves as part of the system, because then they're going to have to spend later on, if they want to become free, they're going to have to spend all this money and all this time trying to figure out how to do it. And it may become close to, if not impossible to do, 10, 20, 30 years in the future. So I'm warning you guys now to be careful. And, once you contract with these people, it's very, very, very hard to break these contracts. But anyways, I guess it's good news that they're getting scared and they're trying to say, don't breastfeed, because when people are open-minded about breastfeeding, they're going to be open-minded about anti-vaccines. When they get open-minded about anti-vaccines, they're going to be open-minded and read the same websites, naturalnews.com and natural cures they don't want you to know about and all these things. And people are going to be onto the anti-GMO bandwagon. And they're onto the anti-GMO bandwagon. They're going to be onto the natural parenting bandwagon. They're going to be on the natural parenting bandwagon. They're going to be on the homeschooling bandwagon. And they're going to be on the creationism, there is a God, as opposed to the Big Bang Theory, atheistic view of the universe and solar system. And people may realize that everything we've been taught in school is in public government school system is a scam. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I think they're really scared of. It's not just, Pediatrics Journal is not just trying to protect the interests of the vaccine companies. That's just the bait and switch. But it's certainly a big factor, because the vaccines are the fastest growth department or division of the pharmaceutical industry. But there's a lot more to it. It's about soul sucking, it's about brainwashing and indoctrinating, and it's basically about Lucifer owning and controlling your offspring and your kids. And once you contract with them, put them in public schools and give them birth certificates, when the Antichrist comes, your kids are not going to be saved, and they are not going to they're not going to be saved. They're going to be sacrificed, and God's going to allow them, because there's only going to be 144,000 that get saved. That's just my little rant on that. I feel like intuitively throwing that in there. I know some of you may disagree with me or whatever, but at least you respect my right for speaking what's on my mind. And if you disagree, I respect that. It took me long years of research and back and forth to really come to that feeling that that's really what's going on. But folks, the level of Satanism going on and the people that control the world is really so overwhelming. I mean, the axis of the earth is 66.6 degrees. Every president, you could type in every president or powerful person on planet earth in every segment of society giving the satanic Lucifer salute. Okay? You could do it for Obama, you could do it for Bush, you could do it for Clinton. Look, this is Bush and Laura Clinton both doing it. This is them doing it with the Queen of England. Okay, look at this. All right. Okay, other politicians are doing it. Clinton. Let's see. You got Clinton doing it. Okay? Take your time, research this stuff, go on YouTube, type in, Satanic New World Order, right? And research it. Okay? But the tilt of the earth, 23.4, 66.6. Every president going to Bohemian Grove, part of the Bohemian Grove, quote, mock human sacrifices, which they actually do real human sacrifices, but Alex Jones only snuck in there and recorded the mock human sacrifice. So we only have the proof, the video proof of that. I'm going to show you guys a little something else. Not only is the tilt of the earth 66.6, but the Satanic Freemasons that developed the units of measurement way, way, way back, when the whole world was on the same page about how long a second is, and how long a minute is, and how long an hour is, okay? We know that a day is a definite period. It's where the sun comes back and it's at the same point in the sky, right? And whether the world is a globe or whether the world is the earth is flat and there's a sun going in a circle around it, we know that a day is where the sun is at about the same exact point. So that's a day. That's a set amount of time. You can't debate that. I mean, that's just one day is one day. You can't change it. It's going to be a certain amount of time. But who broke down all the time in a day and said it's going to be 24 hours? We're going to have 12 hands on the clock. We're going to have 60 seconds. Who came up with these arbitrary numbers? 12, 24 hours in a day, 60 seconds? Who came up with this? Why don't they just make it... Why didn't... Whoever developed the units of measurement and decided... At some point, many hundreds, thousands of years ago, I don't know, somebody said a second is this long. They could have made a second, right, 20% shorter, 25, 25, 30, 40% longer. They could have made it a little shorter, a little longer, and said, that's a second. We're going to say that this exact thing is 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. They could have made it a little shorter. They could have made it a little longer. They could have said that there's, based on that, they could have made how many minutes are in an hour. They could have made it anything. They could have said there's 50 minutes in an hour. They could have said that there's 100 minutes in an hour. Wouldn't it make sense to just go by the decimal system and say that there's 10 and there's 100 of everything within everything? They could have made a second to make it be there's 10 hours in a day, or that there's 20 hours in a day, or that there's 100 seconds in a minute. It could. What's with the 60 and the 24? And I will let you guys in on something that I figured out. The Satanic Freemasons that devised the units of measurement and the alleged axis of the earth, and that they said that the moon is so-and-so millions of miles away from the earth, and the sun is so-and-so millions of miles away from the earth, and all these different things. At some point, they said that there's 60 seconds. They developed the amount of time a second is in order to fit this. That 60 seconds would equal 1 minute, right? 60 minutes would equal 1 hour. And 24 hours would equal that 1 day, which you can't change what a day is, right? But they fit this within this, within this, within this, within this, within this. Because within 1 day, they want us all to worship Lucifer. We wear our clocks and we wear our watches. And they want us to, every single day, be hitting 666. Every single day. 6 plus 0 is 6. 2 plus 4 is 6. And it's not a coincidence that in every day you've got a 666. And the tilt of the earth, allegedly, on this globular model that everyone is worshiping like a religion, right? People worship science like a religion. They don't question it. Isn't that the definition of an indoctrinated dogma, that people don't investigate themselves? They don't do their own measurements. They don't research and question things. They just indoctrinate people in the government-run school systems that the earth is 66.6 degrees tilted. 23.4. Do the math, my friends. 90-degree angle minus 23.4. 66.6. And there's a lot more I can go into. For the interest of keeping this video just under an hour, I'm going to stop now. I will do some other videos on this. Please comment on the video. I know this isn't really sovereignty and contract law training necessarily, but it kind of fits a lot of the other things into why we need to really develop a movement of people not filing birth certificates, not putting their kids in public school systems, and doing home parenting and things like that. So if you like this, based on your comments below, I know I went on for a whole hour, but based on whether you guys, research this stuff or think that it's valuable, will determine whether or not I just stick to the contract law definition procedure stuff, or whether I maybe do a little bit more things like this in the future. So please let me know your comments. Hit like, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I will see y'all soon, hopefully. Bye. God bless. Good night.